Once an overlooked Japanese sports car, the Toyota Supra MK4 has transformed into an untouchable legend, commanding sky-high prices and endless admiration. But how did it get here? How did a car that nobody wanted in the 90s become the most sought-after JDM legend of all time? The legend of the MK4 Supra, how Toyota built an icon. Back in the early 1990s, Toyota wasn't exactly known for building high-performance sports cars. Sure, they had the MR2, which was a fun little mid-engine runabout, and the Celica, which was decent in rallying, but no one was putting Toyota to the same conversation as Ferrari, Porsche, or even Nissan. That all changed in 1993 when they unleashed the fourth-generation Supra, also known as the MK4, or more famously, the A80. Now, let's get one thing straight. This car wasn't some half-baked attempt at making a sports car. Toyota threw everything they had at it. The MK4 Supra was designed to be a grand tourer with a serious performance edge. The engineers were obsessed with making it lighter and faster. They trimmed down the weight wherever possible, using an aluminum hood, a magnesium alloy steering wheel, hollow carpet fibers. Yes, even the carpets had to go on a diet, and a gas-injected rear spoiler that was lighter yet stronger than conventional ones. But the real magic lay under the hood. The Supra came with two engine options, a naturally aspirated 3.0-liter inline-six 2JZ-GE and the legendary twin-turbocharged 2JZ GTE. And when we say legendary, we mean it. The 2JZ GTE was so overbuilt that even Toyota didn't realize they had just created one of the strongest stock engines in history. Straight out of the factory, the twin-turbo Supra made 276 horsepower, at least on paper. But let's be real, Toyota, along with every other Japanese automaker at the time, was playing along with the gentleman's agreement to limit horsepower numbers. In reality, the Supra was making well over 300 horsepower, and with just a little tuning, owners were cranking that up to 500 or even 1,000 horsepower with stock internals. No wonder it became a legend in the tuning world. But power alone doesn't make a car great, it needs balance, and Toyota nailed it. The MK4 Supra had near-perfect weight distribution, double wishbone suspension on all four corners, and a Getrag 6-speed manual transmission that was basically bulletproof. This meant the car wasn't just fast in a straight line, it could handle corners with confidence too. It could go toe-to-toe with Corvettes, Porsches, and even Ferraris of its era, all while costing a fraction of the price. And then, of course, there was the styling. That long, sweeping hood, the muscular fenders, the massive rear wing, everything about the MK4 looked fast even when it was standing still. But for all its greatness, the MK4 Supra wasn't exactly a sales success in the 90s. It was expensive, and Toyota was struggling to justify its existence. Little did they know, this car was about to become one of the most sought-after sports cars in history. Hollywood made it famous, tuners made it unstoppable, and collectors made it unattainable. This is the rise of the Supra. If you love legendary cars like the Supra, hit that like button and share your click. From affordable to unattainable, the soaring value of the Turbo Supra. If you were car shopping in the late 90s, you could walk into a Toyota dealership, point at a brand new MK4 Supra Turbo, and drive away for about $40,000. Not exactly pocket change, but compared to the Ferraris and Porsches, it was embarrassing on the track. It was a steal. The problem? Almost nobody was buying them. Toyota had built a high-performance masterpiece, but the market just wasn't interested. Sports cars were struggling in the 90s. Insurance premiums were sky-high. Fuel economy was becoming a bigger concern, and people were more interested in practical sedans and SUVs. The Supra, with its massive rear wing and tuner-friendly reputation, became a tough sell. By 1998, Toyota had enough and pulled it from the US market. At the time, nobody cared. The MK4 was just another sports car that had come and gone, and dealers were practically begging people to buy them. You could find used ones sitting on lots for under $20,000. And then, something strange happened. Fast forward to the mid-2000s, and suddenly the Supra was no longer just a used Japanese sports car. It was a myth. Thanks to the Fast and the Furious, street racing culture, and the internet spreading stories of 1,000 horsepower builds, demand for the Supra skyrocketed. Enthusiasts who once overlooked it now saw it as the holy grail of Japanese performance. By the time the 2010s rolled around, the Mark IV Supra Turbo wasn't just desirable, it was rare. Many had been heavily modified, crashed, or exported, leaving fewer clean examples on the market. And if there's one rule in car collecting, it's that scarcity drives prices up. A car that was once collecting dust at dealerships was now selling for $50,000, then $70,000, then six figures. Today, if you want a low-mileage, unmodified twin-turbo Supra with a 6-speed manual, be prepared to sell a kidney. In 2022, a 1994's Toyota Supra Turbo with just 7,000 miles sold for $237,000 at auction. That's Ferrari money. Even well-driven examples easily fetch over $100,000. But what makes the Supra's price explosion even crazier is that it never stopped being a Toyota. This isn't a hand-built European supercar. It doesn't have some ultra-rare V12. It's a Japanese coupe with an inline-six and a turbo. But that's exactly why people love it. It was built to last, and with today's insane prices, it's become an investment. Hollywood, tuning, and hype, the forces driving Supra mania. If you had told Toyota in 1998 that their soon-to-be discontinued Supra would one day be a pop culture icon, they probably would have laughed. At the time, it was just another sports car that had failed to sell. But today, the Mark IV Supra is a legend, and that's largely thanks to three things: Hollywood, the tuning scene, and the overwhelming hype that refuses to die. Let's start with the biggest reason the Supra became a household name: the Fast and the Furious. When the first movie hit theaters in 2001, nobody expected it to change car culture forever. But then came that race. Brian O'Connor, played by Paul Walker, pulls up in a bright orange, heavily modified Supra. Dom Toretto, played by Vin Diesel, rolls up in a Dodge Charger. The race happens. The Supra walks the Ferrari later in the movie, and suddenly every teenager on the planet wanted one. That scene turned the Supra from just another Japanese sports car into an untouchable street racing god. The fact that it could take on exotics with a few modifications wasn't just part of the script, it was reality. Tuners quickly realized that the 2JZ GTE engine could handle absurd amounts of power. With just a bigger turbo, upgraded fuel injectors, and some ECU tuning, the Supra could make 600 to 800 horsepower without breaking a sweat. Push it further and you're looking at 4-digit power figures on a stock block. This is where the tuning world took over. Unlike other 90s sports cars, the Supra wasn't just fast for its time. It was built so well that even decades later it was still competing with modern supercars. The twin-turbo version came with a Getrag V160 6-speed transmission, which was so strong that even at 1,000 horsepower it didn't flinch. Tuners loved it, and suddenly every Supra owner wanted to see just how far they could push their car. But then came the problem. So many Supras got modified that finding a clean, stock example became nearly impossible. And when something becomes rare, it becomes expensive. Add in YouTube videos, social media hype, and influencers constantly talking about how the Supra was the greatest Japanese sports car ever made, and suddenly prices started skyrocketing. It became the car to own, even for people who had no intention of driving it hard. The Supra isn't the rarest Japanese car, nor is it the most exotic, but its reputation grew so large that it feels like it's the king of them all. Everyone from collectors to casual fans now sees it as a must-have piece of automotive history. Can you even afford one? The true cost of owning a Mark IV Supra. So after hearing all the hype, the record-breaking auction sales, and the legendary status of the Supra, you might be thinking, alright, how much do I actually need to get my hands on one? Well, let's just say it's not as simple as walking into a dealership and slapping some cash on the table. The Mark IV Supra isn't just expensive, it's become a financial black hole for anyone trying to own or build one. If you want a clean, unmodified twin-turbo 6-speed manual Supra, you better be prepared to drop at least $100,000. And that's for a decent example. If you're looking for ultra low miles, a rare color, or something that looks like it just rolled off the factory floor, you're looking at $150,000 to $250,000. That's Porsche 911 Turbo or Nissan GTR money for a Toyota from the 90s. But maybe you're thinking, I don't need a mint condition one. I'll just buy a cheaper automatic non-turbo model and build it for myself. Sounds smart, right? Not so fast. Even an automatic, naturally aspirated Supra that nobody cared about 10 years ago will now set you back $50,000 to $70,000 before you even touch a wrench. And that's where the real money pit begins, building one. Let's say you want to turn a non-turbo Supra into the 1,000 horsepower monster of your dreams. First, you'll need to swap in the legendary 2JZ GTE engine, which isn't cheap. A good one can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, and that's before upgrades. The turbo setup? Expect another $5,000 to $10,000 if you're going big. But then there's the Gatrog V160 6-speed manual transmission, a crucial part of the Supra's reputation. But here's the catch, Toyota doesn't make them anymore. If you somehow manage to find one, prepare to shell out $15,000 to $20,000 for a transmission. That's more than some cars cost entirely. And we haven't even gotten to the suspension, brakes, ECU, fuel system, or dyno tuning, all of which could easily push a build into the six-figure range. Oh, and let's not forget about insurance, because any company willing to cover a 1,000 horsepower Supra knows you're not just driving to the grocery store. At this point, you might be wondering, is it even worth it? Financially? Absolutely not. But for the people who love Supras, the money is worth it. Are you a diehard JDM fan? Subscribe now for more deep dives into the greatest performance cars ever built. Drop a comment below and turn on notifications, because we've got some insane stories coming your way.